Welcome to the third in our bespoke series on expert positioning and innovation for Seika. Hi, I'm Douglas Kruger, author and professional speaker. In our previous installment, we looked at structural innovation for your business as a means of standing out. Now, in the grand tradition of feeling the fear and doing it anyway, let's look at another way of standing out that may terrify some. It's the P word, personality. Let's talk about how you can set yourself apart and become a better known source with personality. Every industry has standout names. Now, we tend to think that this is the result of having, say, the highest level of academic qualification, but often it isn't so. You do have to be sufficiently qualified to play the game. That is, entrance into the game in any industry, in any landscape. But the most technically qualified practitioners are rarely the top earners. Instead, these tend to be the celebrities, the top names, the icons in every industry. And every industry has them. A few examples. You might think of skateboarding and Tony Hawk, or perhaps horror novels and Stephen King. You may think of bodybuilding, and your mind may go straight to Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I do an interesting experiment that I've tried on continents around the world. I put up the phrase bodybuilding and ask, what's the first name that springs to mind? And infallibly, you will hear Schwarzenegger. Now, what's interesting about that is the last time he practiced as a professional bodybuilder was over 39 years ago. We're going on 4 decades. People in those audiences were typically born after he stopped, and they still think of him as the top name. There's something interesting in that. You might think of the Oprah of TV, the Clarkson of cars, the Gordon Ramsay of kitchens, the Elon of innovation, or the Cyril of ceaseless lockdowns, and so on. The idea of expert positioning works at a global scale, and it works on a regional scale. So, who do you think of as the big name in your industry, in this landscape, and why? These people are not necessarily the most qualified. Chances are, instead, they are the most prominent. There is a 3-part formula that goes into expert positioning, and you need all 3 of these parts working together, or you disqualify yourself as an expert. The 3 parts are, number 1, knowledge. That's our catch-all term for qualifications, expertise, experience. You have to know what you're doing to qualify as an expert and an icon. But it's not the whole picture. Part 2, personality. This is what sets apart the Clarkson of cars, the Nigella Lawson of food, and the folks who become the top names in any industry. And it's as a result of that, and part number 3, that they become the name at the end of the sentence. You know who you should talk to about that. And part number 3 is simply publicity. Knowledge, personality, publicity. You must have all 3 working together, or you disqualify yourself as a top icon. If you have all the knowledge in the world, but no personality, you are merely a specialist, struggling for business. If you have all the personality in the world and no knowledge, you are merely a Kardashian, and that's a whole different universe. Knowledge, personality, and publicity. You need the 3 of them working together. You have to know your stuff, you have to bring a certain flair, a certain humor, a certain degree of personality and charm to it. You have to bring you to the table. And then you have to take it on a roadshow and show it to the world in compelling ways. Knowledge, personality, publicity. This means doing several things rather differently to the way that most people would. Whenever they ask people, what is your number 1 fear? Typically, death ranks second. At the top of the list is public speaking. And of course, what that teaches us is that at your average funeral, most people would rather be the guy in the box than the one delivering the eulogy. And yet that stat in and of itself teaches us something. It says that if you are counterintuitive enough, if you are brave enough to go against the flow and to do the things that most people fear doing, you will by definition already stand apart from the crowd. If most people are not willing to be a face and a voice in the public consciousness, but you choose to do so by design, you have already begun to set yourself apart. The one who makes that decision speaks in public, leads the seminar, does the television interviews, perhaps creates the YouTube videos, is seen to engage with the audience and to offer thought leadership. And the person seen speaking at the front of the room or in front of the television cameras is perceived as a thought leader, and that adds equity to your name. So, our goal is to become a face and a voice in the public consciousness by design, to become someone who your target market, your potential clients, know and think of, and to do so on purpose. So, does your target market have a picture of your face? Do they know your voice? Is there a way that they might? And what are your options for doing so? At the most basic level, strong writing is a form of voice. There are plenty of writers who become so beloved that we feel as though we know these people, as though we like and trust them even when we haven't seen their face. So if you are working with newsletters, are you doing it in a way that builds a personality that helps you to stand out as someone that they recognize, trust, and think about because you're entertaining? At the higher levels, you might consider appearing on radio talk shows. There is a desperate need for thought leadership at the moment as we go through the lockdowns and the changes and everything becomes disruptive around us. Do you have answers to that sort of thing? And if so, are you volunteering yourself for talk radio, for television news? Are you creating YouTube videos? Are you looking for blogs and podcasts where you might be a featured guest? A quick tip in passing, there's a group called HARO, H-A-R-O, Help a Reporter Out. And they send out journalistic requests on a daily basis, sometimes 2 or 3 a day, and you can scan through them and see who's looking for experts and volunteer your voice. This helps you to get into the habit of volunteering your voice in public forums. I'm well aware of the idea that building a personality-based brand is terrifying for most people, and that's why over the next few videos I'll give you some profound insights in terms of how you can set your communication apart, how you can make your messages memorable, and what you can do that makes you the name at the end of the sentence. You know who you should talk to about that. For now, I'd like to give you a few reasons why this is a good idea and a couple of questions to think about. Over the course of writing several books on expert positioning and brand distinction, I've listed, I think, some 20 different reasons why it is worth your while to become a standout name, personality, and brand. Here are just 4 of them. The first one, the top names earn more, and often it's exponentially more. In a world of thousands of motoring journalists, Jeremy Clarkson wasn't earning double what your average journalist was earning. It wasn't even triple, it wasn't even tenfold. It was on an order of magnitude greater. And it's not because he necessarily knows more. It's because of the combination of knowledge, personality, and publicity. So, number 1, the top names earn more. Number 2, the nature of your marketing changes. Instead of a scenario in which you, as a solo practitioner or a small business, have to go and win clients over one by one, you end up finding that they start coming to you. You are the trusted source. You are the go-to name. People talk about you. You become known and renowned in the industry. Reason number 3, it becomes self-perpetuating. When there's, say, a conference in your industry, you've spoken before, you offered value and insight, you were entertaining, they have to have you again. And the same applies to things like the radio interviews, the television interviews. You were so compelling, you gave so much value that they have to have you again. And as a result of that, it becomes a virtuous cycle, a loop in which you become more of a personality, and because of that, they have to have you again. And that creates your marketing and creates tribes of followers and makes you the name at the end of the sentence. You know who you should talk to about that. Reason number 4. You go from being a cog in a system to a thought leader who, at least in part, guides where the entire industry is going. It is deeply rewarding. You become something of a guide, a guru, a mentor to others, and you feel as though what you are doing is no longer merely a practice. It becomes a cause. It becomes who you are. It becomes inextricably linked with your personal identity. And there's something wonderfully gratifying about that. So, folks, a few questions for you to ponder before the next video. Number 1, who do you currently believe is the big name in your landscape and why? What do they do differently? Number 2, what do you know that could be turned into useful messages, ideas, education, and entertainment for your potential target market. Surely there must be an urgent need for it right now, given all of the changes, the upheaval in the landscape. Could you start sharing that? And could you do it in a way that is highly entertaining so that people watch your videos, read your articles, take in your interviews on purpose because they want to? Number 3, are you bold enough to do something that doesn't look or feel like what everyone else is doing? Let me guess, your industry has a deluge of corporate newsletters sent out every week. Then perhaps something with a comic strip. Perhaps something with an entertaining YouTube video. Something that looks different by design and helps you to stand out based on your knowledge, your personality, and your publicity. Take what you know, build in the entertainment factor, the delight, and take it on a roadshow. Stand out by design, and you could become the name at the end of the sentence. You know who you should talk to about that.